Meg and I are going to share as much knowledge as we possibly can in the next 60 minutes. So, as much knowledge as we can possibly fit into this time. So, we're going to show you three practical tools. But what we ask is if you're okay to put aside any like phones or any distractions or mute notifications so that you can really be present and get the maximum amount you can from this session today.
Just as way as introduction, I'm Meg. I am a functional and therapeutic breathwork practitioner, which is very wordy, but essentially means is I help people go from dysfunctional breathing to functional breathing, which I'll explain more about in a second. I am a reflexologist. I specialize in nervous system health, mainly for women. And then I'm also the founder of Postpartum Plan. And Postpartum Plan is an online recovery resource for any expectant and parent through the kind of first 7 years of having children to help your emotional and physical recovery with all the experts that new parents should have access to, including the invaluable Tricia.
I'm Tricia Murray, and I am a mental well-being coach as well as other things. And I've been working with women for the last 11 years, and specifically working with women who feel very overwhelmed, anxious, burned out, stressed, who are really, really, really struggling with their emotions, so they feel much calmer, they have a much easier life, and they actually feel fulfilled and really, really living their best life. So that's who I work with.
So just a little bit of the stats, because I think they are important kind of embed what's going on here. So 75% of parents experience stress and overwhelm when they return to work. I think that it's probably a lot more than that. I think quite a lot of us mask, or some people do the swan, which I was called when I used to work in the corporate world, which is that you seem very calm on the top of the water, right? Very calm and elegant, walking around the office, but inside, like underneath, your feet are madly flapping, right? That was me, and I ended up having a bit of a breakdown and quitting the corporate world. So I relate to everyone who's going through these stressful situations. This isn't just parents. So 42% of all Gen Z and 40% of millennials struggle to perform to the best of their ability at work due to poor mental health. Only 3% of employees feel comfortable speaking to their HR. So who are they speaking to? Probably not anyone in the workplace. And they possibly feel like they can't cope, which is a really, really important stat for me, because I'm like, actually, if there's no outlet for you in the workplace, then you're keeping it all inside, which can essentially cause illness. And finally, 28 billion is the cost of stress in the workplace in the UK per year, which is massive, right? That can be physical, so shoulder pain, bruxism, which is clenching of the jaw. It can be chronic back pain, or it could be insomnia, anxiety, rage, and feelings that you can't cope in the workplace. So this is just 3 stats, just to kind of lay the groundwork really for what's going on. And then the other thing I just want to mention is, actually, I'm going to save that until a bit later.
So what we'd like you to do today is we really want you to experience a transformation today. So we really want to introduce you to some tools so that you can experience them and actually see what a difference these tools are going to actually have on your life. So I want you to think about an everyday situation that's making you feel stressed or making you feel anxious, that you want to free yourself from. Now, what we ask is you bring something that's everyday, so not something that's life changing. So if you're going through a split with your partner or somebody's really ill in hospital, we ask you not to focus in on those situations, but just an everyday situation that is really causing you stress and anxiety that you want to free yourself from. And we'd like you to pop it into the chat. And we want you to think, like, when you think about the situation, like say for example, we're here working on Christmas, but say for example, it's a deadline at work, or something going on with your kids at school. We want you to think, how intense is the stress between 0 and 10, with 10 being the most stressed? And if you can pop it into the chat, that would be super, super helpful.
Give everyone a minute just to think about it. Hmm. Interesting. My home's descending to chaos again. It's a 9 out of 10 on my stress levels. Messy home, I hear you. Like that really gets me. So I completely understand that. Putting pressure on myself to get everything done. 7 or 8 out of 10. My to-do list, which is funny, isn't it? Because our to-do list is there to make us feel more organized, but actually the to-do list causes more stress.
Yeah, there's the energy around the to-do list, isn't it? Laura, how stressed is that between like how strong is that between 0 and 10? And the Lima, how strong is that between 0 and 10? But your kids not listening to you. Kids get ready for school. Yes, totally. How strong is that between 0 and 10? So just picture yourself in that situation. So picture yourself like in the morning, how strong that stress is between 0 and 10. Okay, and I'll just let you carry on putting in those numbers as we move on. But having those numbers is really, really, really helpful. So again, Katie, just pop in your number as well, because we're going to come back to this number at the end of the session. So we really want you to think about this number quite clearly.
Okay, so yeah, Nalima put a 10 out of 10 for my kids never listening to me. High stress levels to the extent I think the issue is me, not them. It's a really interesting one.
Yeah. Sorry, right, that's cool. So sorry, the numbers weren't popping up, but now I've seen them. Anyway, I want you to think about what strategy so far is it that you've used to support yourself? Like, have you sought professional help? Have you moaned to your friend about it, your partner about it? Have you ended up drinking wine? Have you ended up going for a walk? What are the strategies that you use all the time to support yourself with the stress? Have any, because you might not do anything to support yourself. So just, if you can, just share any strategies that you've used to help you. Talk in the gym, I like that. It's a really healthy approach.
Also, the talking, doesn't it make you really grateful to be a woman? Sometimes I'm like, yeah, fine, we go through periods and labor and menopause and all these kind of things, but the talking and the ability to have a female friendship, I think is worth it.
To your husband and drinking wine. Yeah. Ostrich mode. I can quite often be an ostrich as well, Laura. I totally get it. And trying to deep breathing. Yeah. So Katie, that's something that Meg maybe chat to you about. Yeah, super. It's distraction. Brilliant.
Yeah, I do procrastination as well, Natalie, massively. Laundry is my procrastination.
Totally can relate to that, especially with 4 kids. Right. So we're going to share with you like why those strategies haven't worked before.
And I just wanted to add the bit that I was going to say before. So just to sort of kickstart this section on why those strategies haven't worked. If you think about it, the antidotes or the things that we're using to reduce stress have gone up massively, right? Since 70s and 80s. Talking about stress, acknowledging stress, top 10 ways to reduce your stress, marathons, Spartans, like you get a lot of people who go out riding every Saturday morning or playing golf. Then you have the rise in antidepressants, the rise in anti-anxieties, right? So the solutions to stress are on the up, right? So you'd think that that would cause stress to go down. But what's happening? The solutions are going up, and so is the stress and anxiety. It's going up together like this. So the way that we are attempting to solve our stress is actually not working. And we're now going to explain why. So this is the biggie. I'm going to say it a couple of times for it to sink in. You cannot think yourself out of a feeling. Okay? You cannot think yourself out of a feeling. We are incredible beings, right? The thing that sets us apart from all the other animals in the kingdom, because remember, we are part of nature and we are part of the animal kingdom, essentially, is our ability to think about the fact we're thinking. What's happened is we've over-intellectualized ourselves to the point that we are seeking solutions using our thinking brain. That is detaching us from the feeling of stress and actually what's going on in our body. Our body doesn't know what's real and what's not. So when this stress comes, the messy house, the to-do list, kids never listening to you, your body perceives that as the same level of threat as everyone hears, as about the, being chased by a tiger, because it doesn't know what's real and what's not. And so we have removed ourselves from our body and therefore kind of allowed our body to believe that everything is a threat. Does that make sense? So what we're going to help you with today is to bring you back into your body.
And, I've worked as a therapist and coach the last 11 years. And then, I'm very good friends with a lot of traditional therapists. So what I'm going to say here isn't an attack on traditional therapy, because I think it can be really, 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 really helpful. But in some situations, traditional therapy, traditional coaching can actually make things worse. And the reason why is often you can lay like all the hope and all the expectation on somebody else to fix you. So you kind of go to this person to fix you, to resolve it, rather than actually becoming empowered yourself about how it is that you can manage these situations. And I think it's really important that we're all taught tools how to support ourselves rather than relying on somebody else. And the issue can be with talking therapy is you can go round and round and round the same issue again, getting more and more distressed with this issue. So almost like it becomes more ingrained that this issue is a problem. Going back to what Meg was saying, is that we can start to become really focused on being that stressed and that anxious person and become really labelled by it, almost like it almost defines us. So it's about starting to think, actually, what about if I wasn't, and actually supporting ourselves to move out of that and empowering ourselves to move out of that identity of that stressed and anxious and overwhelmed person into a completely new identity. And that takes a different approach from traditional talking therapy.
And finally, society is solving the symptom, not the root cause. I touched on this in point 1, didn't I? We're spending a lot of time solving the insomnia, solving the rage, solving the whatever it may be, like the procrastination, all of those kind of things are the symptom of what's going on in the body, which is that your nervous system doesn't feel safe. And we're going to touch on actually what the nervous system is in a second, because it's become a little bit of a buzzword. And actually, I think it's really important to really understand what goes on in the body. It all goes back to the fact that we've all lost touch with our body and don't know the beauty and the intricacy of what's going on inside us, that will therefore help us be more compassionate with ourselves.
So I'm going to cover what is stress and what does it do. So stress is really our nervous system reacting to something external. So just like what Meg said earlier, we have external things that happen to us. We've got a lot on. I don't know, our kids are sick. We've got a messy house. We've got a deadline at work. We've got, I don't know, we're moving house. Something external happens to us. And it's so we take that external information and it's how our body then processes that and then has a reaction to it. Now, sometimes stress is really helpful. So if you've got a deadline at work, or if you're like Meg and I are doing this presentation today, sometimes having that adrenaline surge is really good because it really helps you to perform. Or say, for example, you've got somebody who's in hospital who's really sick, like having that stress really helps you to get up each and every day to go and visit that person in the hospital. Like that stress can give you strength to get through those situations. But the issue is often, just as Meg said, is that we're responding to everyday situations every single day, like being late somewhere, our kids being late, our kids not listening to us, our to-do list. We're responding to those situations in exactly the same way as we would a really, really big thing. And that is where the issue is, because we end up in chronic states of being chronically stressed and chronically overwhelmed. So it really disrupts our nervous system. We talk enough, there's a lot of stuff out there about nervous system regulation and what that, with nervous system dysregulation and wanting to be regulated. But that's what we're talking about, staying in chronic states of stress and how unhealthy that is for us. And just going back to what Meg said as well, is how we perceive a situation. So one person can perceive talking in public as being a very frightening and very overwhelming thing, where somebody else can see talking in public as being a very exciting, might give you amazing opportunities. It's the same situation, but we're responding differently to it. So we're perceiving it differently. And it's that perception of how we view that situation, how we take that external information, that is what creates that reaction in our body. So it's about starting to perceive things in a completely different light. And when we talk about the nervous system, what we're talking about is we can often go into two different states. So the state that we kind of really want to be in is that safe and social state. So often, like, you might have heard of that as being like the rest and digest, or if you've done any nervous system work, you might have heard that being called the parasympathetic state. So that's the state where you feel nice and relaxed, you feel capable, you feel resilient, you're able to manage information really well. Whereas often the way that we're reacting to situations, so you might have a to-do list, and what's happening is what you're talking about, that procrastination, is you're kind of going into like some sort of freeze mode. So like the ostrich head in the sand mode. And I'm very familiar with that. So I'm not sitting here judging anybody, because I know that it's a very familiar thing that I do as well. So we'll go into that fight or flight. So something else might get added onto your to-do list, and therefore you'll shout at somebody, or you become passive aggressive with somebody, or else maybe like, that's it, I'm out of here. Like, that's your flight response kicking in. Freeze is just ignoring it. Fawn might just be like, yeah, I'll just keep doing it, I'll just keep doing it. It's a very sort of people pleasing mode. And actually, as Meg was chatting about earlier, that swan, like swans can often be in that sort of fawn mode, and that is a safety response. If we respond in that way, so that everybody likes us, everybody accepts us, everybody is nice to us, then that'll keep us safe, that'll keep us safe from any sort of attack. So these are like different ways that we respond to situations. And we really kind of want to be in that safe and social nervous system. So it doesn't mean we don't ever want to experience that stress, because that stress, that adrenaline, that cortisol can be really helpful in certain situations to get us through. But most of the time, we kind of want to be in a safe and social nervous system state. So that parasympathetic, that very relaxed state. Because when we are, it means we're able to communicate really well, because we're communicating rationally. It really supports us to communicate in really rational, really healthy ways. We're able to have really healthy adult conversations, rather than like slamming doors or responding with like nippy emails. When we're responding in that safe and social nervous system, it means that we feel confident, able to express ourselves confidently, and we feel good about the things that we're doing, and we're able to still prioritize our health and well-being. And when we're in that safe and social state, we have more time, we have more energy, we have more headspace, because we're able to manage things really well. We're not giving that to-do list any more energy. We're able just to see it for what it is. And because we have headspace and we give ourselves time, it means we still allow ourselves to come up with solutions, and we're still able to be creative. And it feels good. Like, we associate work, or we associate our home, or we associate our situation where we're experiencing those challenges in a positive light. So it's really important to take ourselves back to that really safe and social, healthy nervous system state, because therefore it helps us to feel good and helps us to feel positive.
And just finally on this bit, because I want to make sure we get to the really meaty, practical stuff. We've talked a lot about psychology, right? So again, we've talked about the thinking part and how we can sort of the intellectual parts of stress. But there's another part, which is your physiology. So a lot of us believe that our psychology affects our physiology, right? So we go and do talking therapy, we talk to a friend, etc. and our psychology talking about it helps our physiology. There's actually another part to the loop, which is our physiology affects our psychology. So what's going on inside the body is sending a message to the brain. So remember what I said before, our body doesn't know what's real and what's not. Our body goes, I'm feeling a bit scared, sends a message to the brain goes, okay, got it, that's fine, I know exactly what to do now. It sends a message back to the body to release the cortisol, the adrenaline, etc. And then the loop carries on. So what we're here today to do is try and break that cycle. Now, the main way that physiology can impact psychology is breath. Okay, I'm guessing, I can't see you all, but I'm guessing you've all taken a breath. I see a lot of people be like, okay, and take a breath in, right? We take about 25,000 breaths a day. And in modern society, it's not your fault, but in modern society, most of those are dysfunctional. I use the example, if you were to smoke 25,000 cigarettes a day, you'd feel pretty rubbish, right? But if we were taking 25,000 dysfunctional breaths in a day, that is 25,000 signals to the brain that we're in danger. So what I teach my clients is not a 20-minute lovely breathwork session and then rushing around and doing, dysfunctional breath again. It's actually going back to basics to understanding your breath. These are the 3 areas here that can cause dysfunctional breath the most. And unfortunately, most of them lie with women. Posture. And again, I can't see you all, but I'm guessing you've all, yeah, there you go, Laura, I can see you. Standing up a bit straighter, right? Sitting up a bit straighter. A lot of us are in front of a desk, aren't we? Picking up stuff off the floor, doing the laundry, but sitting has become the new smoking, essentially, right? So if we're sitting and we're slouching down a bit, that is constricting our diaphragm so much that we're not taking those full belly breaths, okay? The next one is pressure. You've all spoken about the pressure that you're under at the moment. That is obviously going to cause issue within our physiology, because what happens when we're under pressure is that we start to breathe up in our chest. Breath up in our chest is a form of hyperventilation. I don't want to put big scary words in, but I believe that we can all hear this, right? That is a form of hyperventilation. A lot of us do it, right? But that's obviously then sending the message up to the brain. And for any of you who have had children, pregnancy does shift your breath. It's not just the fact that you've had a baby shoved up into your ribs. The progesterone also causes changes to your breath. And then finally, if any of you have had C-sections, having a C-section is a form of abdominal surgery, which means that your body goes, okay, it's too painful to breathe into my tummy, I'm going to breathe up into my chest. Here's the issue. Our bodies aren't self-optimizing. So your C-section scar might have recovered 7-10 years ago, but your body doesn't go, I'm going to go back to breathing properly now. It doesn't do that. You have to reteach the body how to breathe properly. So a lot of parents out there are dysfunctionally breathing. It's not your fault. It's the fact that no one has been taught how to retrain the body. So just a little bit on the science, because I think it's really important to understand the beauty of the body, because I think it will humble us into doing more body work. Our breathing is more than just air. It's one of the things that is conscious and subconscious, okay? Our liver is subconscious. We don't have to think about our liver to detox the body, do we? Right? But breath is something that we can do consciously and subconsciously. But here's the thing, the subconscious breath is the one that basically changes everything in our body, our pH, our gas exchange, our digestion, our sleep, everything. It's essentially the primary regulator of our chemistry. So this is amazing, right? We have the power to shift our digestion, our sleep, our chemistry within our body just purely through our breath. Okay. So are you ready to shift your stress?
Okay, so the first thing we're going to teach you is all about perception. Sorry, just see something in the chat. So the first thing is we are going to teach you all about perception shifting. So remember what I said at the start is that one person might see like a presentation, it's been like a big, huge, scary thing, and somebody else might be like, yeah, I totally love speaking in front of people. So it's all about starting to shift our perception. So I want you to take the situation you've worked on. So situation by the start. So it could be to-do list, it could be children not listening to you. It could be the house being a mess. And I want you to write down, I want you to draw 2 circles. So like a bit like an egg, I always think it is. And I want you on the inside to draw all of the things that are out with your control. And then the outer circle, I want you to think about all the things that are within your control. So I'm going to give you about a minute or a minute and a half just to think about that.
Tricia, just to help people, I think in the next slide it has like some
Yeah, I was just going to let people just do their go first and then add in things.
Yeah, you're not holding anyone's hands here. Let them do it themselves.
Yeah. And then just want you just to look at your list, look at the things that you've written down. And I want you to think about, again, like look at it, and I've put some suggestions here, and I want you to maybe look at your two circles, like your egg, and recognize that some things are within your control. So how you react to that situation, how you perceive that situation, how you communicate about that situation, what is it you do about that situation? So if you're putting your head in the sand, or if you're making if you're waking up late in the morning, which is making everybody else late, that's an action that you've got control over. The energy, like if you're shouting at your kids rather than like, I don't know, making a comedy act, that is something within your control. The energy that you have towards that, boundaries that you put in your life. Have a situation with a person, able to put boundaries in, how you prioritize and manage your time. Put your phone away. Like the reason why so many of us are late, I know myself, is because I'm sitting faffing about on my phone rather than actually just get myself organized to get in the house, and it feels shame saying that because I feel like I should know better, but this is the reality of our life. And looking after our health, setting expectations, like setting really clear expectations. And the things that are out of our control are external timelines, like, it's Christmas Day. Got to get on with it. Got to get on with a good deadline. Other people, like if your kids aren't listening to you, or if you've got issues with other people, partners or mums or whatever it is, we can't change any of that. We can't do anything about other people's health or external factors, if what the government is doing, or if what's happening in the economy, or if there's like other pandemics, we can't do anything about those things. So just look at your list and just like be super, super, super clear. What is in my control and what isn't in my control? And then I want you to think about the situation that's stressing you out. And I want you to think, this thing that's stressing me out, is this something that's going to last forever, or is it going to be over in a time period? So, like, I don't know, like if your child is keeping you awake at night, which I definitely am experiencing right now, even though he's 6, I know that situation will be over. It's not going to last forever. It's going to be over in a period of time. Same with our kids being young, the same with the deadline at work, the same with any situation. Will it last forever, or will it be over in a time period? And quite often the brain doesn't realize that these things that we see as threats, there is an end point, and there is an end point to all of these things. Is this stuff that I've got through, have I got through before, and can I get through again? Is it going to be important in a month, a year, or 10 years' time? What would I tell a friend or my kids or people that I love that are experiencing this thing? And then sometimes thinking, like, what's the good thing about having this in your life? So I think quite often, like, I try really hard not to moan about my kids, because I think, God, I really wanted to have my kids. I waited 4 years before any of my kids turned up, and I got 4. Like, I'm so grateful to have my kids. Like, I'm so, so, so grateful for all the stuff. So when I, moan about like toys around the house or bits of Lego being down every single bit of my, sofa, I'm so grateful to actually have my children in my life, to actually have all that stuff going on. And then I want you to start asking yourself, like, how is it you can change your perception about this thing? I'll just give you just a minute to go through those questions and just see what resonated. And then just moving on, a lot of the time we can stay stuck in this mindset. I'm so busy, I'm so stressed, I'm so anxious, I'm so overwhelmed, I'm so, whatever it is that you are, whatever it is that you're experiencing, whatever it is that you're saying. And actually kind of keeps you stuck, in this like, oh, I'm busy, I'm stressed, I'm overwhelmed, I'm burnt out, I'm exhausted. All the things that we say to ourselves all the time. And it can just become like a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy that this is who we are, this is our identity, this is how it is. But sometimes it can be really helpful to actually think like what is it? Like what is it we're feeling? And think, how is it we want to feel instead? So I want you to really think like this thing that you're experiencing, how is it you feel? So I don't mean to keep going back to you, Laura, but just that to-do list is such a common thing. Like it's a common thing that I've worked with people who are really overwhelmed by it. So I just want you to become aware of this like to-do list. And I want you to like, you already said earlier, like I procrastinate whenever I just basically want to hide from it. So I want you just to become aware, like this thing that you've got going on in your life, what is it you do? Like, what is it? Like, what happens when this thing is going on? So just become aware. Become aware of how it is you feel and what your behavior is. And then I want you to start asking yourself, and I want you to write this down. If you weren't feeling so stressed, overwhelmed, anxious, what would you be feeling? And feel free to pop it in the chat box. Like if you weren't feeling so overwhelmed, stressed, or anxious, what is it you'd be feeling? Feel free to write it down or write it in the box. Yeah. Feeling lighter, yeah, totally.
Grounded, calm.
Yeah.
I feel empowered. I always do. I get to benefit because I always do something while Tricia's doing this bit. So I always get something from it. There's always something that comes out. Grateful, in control.
Yeah. I mean, how lucky are we to live in a life where we've got the luxury to actually create a to-do list? Like, how lucky are we? We're not worried about so many other things, but we actually have the luxury to actually create a to-do list and we have like exciting things to do.
And just above in the chat, Natalie said, I'm struggling with the getting stuff done stress as it feels like the to-do list is never ending. Natalie, maybe do the circles of control on your to-do list, because there'll be some things I think that could really help you in terms of actually what's in your control and what's out of your control on that to-do list.
And also maybe just like an acceptance that you're never ever going to get through everything on your to-do list, and not see it as like a weighted thing, but as like an organizational tool rather than like a thing that you have to measure yourself up against. So I think quite often it's like almost how we're conditioned by society is always too busy, always to be doing. So I want you to think, if you were feeling, what did we say, lighter, grounded, grateful, and control free, in control and calm, what is it you'd be doing instead? So thinking before of what you were doing instead as you were shutting down. But if you felt free, what is it you'd be doing instead? And what would the impact of your life be? So if, for example, you felt like, so think about the to-do list. If you felt like grateful that you had this to-do list, that you felt, what else did you say? So if you're not procrastinating, Karen, check in with what you are doing instead. So if you're not procrastinating, what's the opposite of that? So it's to do with like language. So if you say I'm not procrastinating, your brain can't hear the not. So therefore it'll continue to procrastinate. So you have to be thinking, what is the action that you want instead? Like what is the thing that you want to be doing instead? So going back, so Laura said that she was feeling grateful and in control to do with the to-do list. And so therefore, what would you have as a result? Yes, you'd have boundaries, giving yourself permission to let things go and free up time to do things that you want to do. So that's what you'd be doing instead. Okay, that's really, really good. Reconnecting inner power, lovely. Love that, Natalie. Getting everything done easily, exactly. Because you'd just be doing it rather than thinking about it. And then I want you to, so I love that, Nilima. I've started saying well done to me for what I have done. Exactly. Exactly. Exactly, Nilima. I love that. So you'd be like really proud of what you have done, because actually we're not very good at doing that, are we? So then what is stopping you doing those things? So if you're going to be getting everything done easily, sorry, what did, oh, sorry, I'm going up and down the wrong list. So what is stopping you from putting boundaries in there? What's stopping yourself giving permission? Let things go, free up time. What's stopping you from reconnecting with your power? So just check in, like, what is stopping you? And just share it in the chat if you want. Really feeling tired and drained. Okay. So if you weren't feeling tired and drained, what is it you'd be doing? Because that is the thing at the start. So if you weren't feeling tired and drained, how is it, what is it you'd be feeling instead? And what is it you'd be doing? So Karen, what's blocking you from just doing it? Yeah, Nalima, that's really helpful. So what's stopping you is your perception of what's really important. Katie trying to pack in too much. So amazing. So what would you be doing instead?
And Laura, I just want to add, because Laura said I'm stuck in a cycle. I often feel I need the adrenaline to get things done. The adrenaline is addictive, right? Like we feel that we need the adrenaline because that's what's going to spur us on. It is an addictive quality. And it's a completely different workshop. There's the yin and the yang in us, right? So the yang is the doing, the fire, the more masculine, and then you've got the feminine, the water, the rest, the recovery, and we need both to be creative. And I think we've moved into a very yang state.
Yeah, totally agree with you, Meg. I like what Jane's written here, that she would be reading a book instead. One of the things I've recognized people in phone addiction is because people quite often sit on their phones to way to zone out, because they feel that they're still being productive in some way. Because, like, I don't know, they're checking stuff out, they're checking out the weather, they feel like they're being productive checking the weather, so they're being productive checking the news, they're being productive checking what's happening on social media, keep up with things. And they feel that they're being lazy if they're reading a book, or that somebody's going to judge them, where somebody wouldn't judge them for being on their phone because they might be checking emails and they might be checking things. And actually, that is often can be like really like, we're not really resting on our phones, but you can quite easily lose kind of hour or 2 hours. So it's actually thinking about that time instead of thinking about this is what I'm going to do with my time. So I would check in with what is it stopping you from reading your book? What is it stopping you from, from having that rest? So I'm just aware of time, so we're just going to move on. But I think these are some really interesting things that have come up. These are really common to so many women. So it's about thinking, right, what's going to stop me and how am I going to overcome
it? Okay, so we've done the psychology and kind of helped with like practical tools. And now we're going to go into the physiology. Okay, so like I said, we've got a loop of psychology to physiology, physiology to psychology. And what I really want to do is to help you break that cycle. So I'm now going to talk you through some breath work that can really help you to shift your physiology and therefore shift your psychology. We've done it this way round, psychology first, then physiology, because actually it makes more sense when you're learning this stuff to do it the way that society's taught us how to do it. But when you're doing this without me and Tricia, I would like you to do the breath first and then go into the seeking the solutions, because you'll find when your body feels safe, you'll be more open to what we're talking about. Because I can see in the chat there's quite a lot of like, oh, well, I'm struggling with this, and because your ego is still playing with you. Okay, so we're going to try breath work. This is called the physiological sigh. And actually, sorry, I'm going to start with something else. So first of all, what I want you to all do is I want you to all take a deep breath. Okay, does everyone take a deep breath? And then I just want you to write in the chat, did you breathe in first or out first? In. Yeah, everyone breathes in. So it's kind of what we've been told to do, right? Everyone says, oh, just calm down, take a breath. And everyone goes, right? What's happening with that is that your breath in normally is activating the sympathetic nervous system, which is the fight or flight. And the breath out is activating the parasympathetic. I mentioned before the yin and the yang, right? We need both, which is why we breathe in, breathe out. And that kind of symbiosis goes on all the time. If you're in a stressful state and you've most likely been hyperventilating for a while, because panic attacks and anxiety don't happen just suddenly, it's dysfunctional breath that's happened over time, is you're hyperventilating a bit and then you're told to take a breath in, and actually you're just adding more sympathetic to the fire. The other thing is, I usually have an empty water bottle with me. You're just going to have to use this, I'm afraid. You can't see it. But I've got half a cup of tea in here, okay? So imagine this is my lungs. And actually already I've got a bit of breath in there. And then you breathe in some more and you're only topping it up. You're not taking the full expanse of the lungs with breath, which means you're not bringing in that beautiful oxygen into the body. So what I'd like you to do to retrain you is every time you're feeling a bit stressed, you breathe out first. It's going to feel weird to start. We just constantly do this and turn it into a habit, okay? So everyone just take a breath out, empty the lungs, and now take a breath in. Feel how much more air goes in, and feel how much more expansive it feels, because your body is doing something subconscious. You've emptied the lungs, and your body goes, boom, I'm ready now, and it starts to really breathe in, right? So that's just a really, really small thing that you can do. Obviously, breathe out. Sorry if you've kept your breath in, and everyone breathe out. And Nalim is saying, trying to do it so it doesn't sound like a massive sigh. I'll get an eye roll for my 14-year-old for that. You can sigh. We're supposed to take about 7 or 8 sighs a day. Interestingly enough, because Tricia spoke about phones, which is another reason why they're not good for you, when you are there on your phone, that it stops your body from naturally sighing. So it's actually stopping your body from doing natural breath, which is why we're seeing such a massive rise in anxiety in teenagers. Okay, so that's another reason to put the phone away. Yeah, go do a big sigh. Everyone, make noise. The next thing I want you to do is just try this breathwork technique. So this is a physiological sigh that I mentioned before. Now, I'm going to start with the in-breath for this one, because this is actually when you've got to that kind of point when you're feeling a little bit like tense. I'm going to start with it, but when you do this, when you practice it, I want you to breathe out first, okay? But what you're going to do is you're going to breathe in, and then you're going to take another little sip, and then do a long breath out. What's the science behind this? You're taking a breath in, the second little sip snaps you out of the mind chatter, okay? You're not just taking a breath in, you're taking almost like a sharper inhale after, that snaps you out of the mental chatter. The long exhale, because anytime you're breathing where the exhale is longer than the inhale, it's activating the parasympathetic state. Okay, so let's all do it. So empty your lungs, breathe out. Take a breath in. Take another little sip. And then breathe out through your nose or mouth. Long exhale. And again, breathe in. Another sip. And breathe out. Long exhale. Try and make it as long as possible. Final time, breathe in. And another sip. And breathe out. What you might have heard for me, and hopefully you heard for yourself, when I did the first breath in and then the sip in, that second sip in sounded quite aggressive. When it got to the third time, it felt soft. And you'll notice it when you do it, because your body's not in that kind of tense state. It's relaxing into the physiological sigh. So that's another really nice tweak that you'll see as you do it. Just remember the exhale longer. Some people can only breathe out for 4, and when you try and get to a 6, really try and get to an 8 or longer if you can. Okay. So how are you feeling now? And I think if you can, think about the thing that was the stressor before. And think about that rating out of 10 and whether it's shifted. And just write down the number in the chat. I notice it in my the way I speak. So I was very high energy, high adrenaline when we first started, and I've now shifted into a much calmer state.
Brilliant.
Shoulders dropped. Great. Really good.
So it's good to look back and see what your score was at the start and see what your score is now between 0 and 10. Amazing, Katie.
Yeah, feel much lighter, body and head. Great.
Yeah. Yeah, totally, Laura. So I think you were 9 or 10 earlier, so you're at 6 or 7. Yeah, totally, Jane.
So Jane, I'll do a little tweak on the language there, because language is really important. You say, I know breathing exercises help. I just need to remember to do them more. That need is a pressure, right? So shift that language to, I want to do more, or I choose to do more, and feel the difference in the pressure in yourself. Because otherwise, what have we spoken about to-do list? It's just another thing on your to-do list to do a bit of breath work, right? We've got
Brilliant.
5 and 10.
Brilliant. That's amazing, Karen.
Karen's down from a 9 to 10 to 7 to 8. That's great.
Super. That's great, Natalie. What were you at the start, Natalie? I feel like 9 or 10.
I feel like everyone was at 9s, 8 or 9s.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Well, thank you, everyone. It's been great and really interactive. It's felt really personal and intimate session. And yeah, we're on a mission to revolutionize workplace well-being together with everyone, right? Like, we really believe that if we can go into workplaces and support colleagues, people with the tools that they need to thrive, not just survive, then we can shift a kind of generation of working women. So we'd love to work more with you.
If you've enjoyed today's session, then we do have an ask, which is that we're really keen to start going into people's workplaces and deliver workshops like this in people's workplaces. So if you've got a workplace who would like to try out this session, or to have a much more tailored program, then do get in touch with us. We offer tailored programs. We offer support in terms of consultancy training and individual support. And from next year, start of next year, Meg and I together are going to start offering programs for women. So if we've got your email address, we can email you with programs once they're ready. And we just like to take this opportunity just to say thank you very much. If you've got any questions or would like to chat to us any more about it, you can email us at info@excelconsulting.co.uk, or you can find either one of us on Instagram. I'm at Tricia UK and Meg is at Postpartum Plan. So, and we're around, we can stay around and just answer questions for the next like 5 minutes when we've got a question.
Thank you so much. I am going to just quickly stop the share on